Feeling lost isn't a failure. It's often the first sign that your identity is integrating. And if you're usually the capable one, the clear one, the one who holds it all together, this episode is going to reframe everything. Hey, welcome back to SoulSHINE, beautiful souls. Today, we are walking through one simple reframe. Feeling lost is not dysfunctional. It's development. And what happens when an old identity stops fitting, but the new one hasn't fully formed yet? And by the end, you'll know what to do in that in-between without making it mean that something is wrong with you. Before we go anywhere today, I want to invite you to arrive right here exactly as you are, not perfectly, just honestly, whether you're driving, whether you're walking, just unclench your jaw, let the ground meet you. If you're in the middle of a busy life, and this episode is the only time you get with yourself today, let that count. Let that be enough and fully be here with yourself through this. Because today's episode isn't something that you consume. It's something that you let work on you and you work with it. So the theme we're walking through today is this, that feeling lost is not a failure. Feeling lost is the beginning of an integration. I'm going to say that slowly because I know that your brain, big, beautiful brain, is going to try to interpret lost. And you know, from so many episodes, we love to take a word from the dictionary and get curious with the definition of it because that's what we unconsciously inherit. So the definition of lost is unable to find one's way, not knowing one's whereabouts. You know, in this space, we love to be in our own reclamation of self, of words, of inherited meanings and messages with purpose, with choice, with power, with our values. And if you're a high-achieving, heart-led human, the one who's capable, the one who's competent, the one holding it all together, feeling lost really can feel like a threat because you are so used to being clear. You're used to being useful. You're used to knowing exactly what comes next and what to do about it. So when you feel uncertain, and I don't mean about like your schedule or your to-do list, I mean about yourself. Your mind turns that into a problem. And if you want an incredible foundation for problems, I'm going to put you backwards one episode to episode 35. It's the perfect companion to problems because we talked about that we can't escape problems and what can we actually do to upgrade the quality of the problem so that the discomfort leads to your growth instead of your shrinking. So I'm going to link it in the show notes for you. So when you feel uncertain about yourself, you usually ask yourself, like, what's wrong with me? Like, I used to feel so good. What's happening? What's wrong with me? Why can't I just be grateful for my life, for what's all these beautiful things in it? Why can't I get it together? Why can't I get back to that version of me that made sense? And this episode is to disrupt that story because some forms of lost are not dysfunctional. They're beautiful. They're developments. They're showing us what happens when that old identity no longer fits, but the new one, it hasn't fully formed yet. And we're in that in-between season. And yeah, that feels really freaking disorienting. Sometimes it feels painful. Sometimes it's really dissatisfying, a sense that something is changing under your feet. Even if your life looks fine from the outside, or maybe people can't even tell yet, or they know it's changing on the outside, but because you are the capable one, they know you're going to be fine. And here you are quietly on the inside, like a duck on the outside looks smooth, but underneath your little feet are paddling so fast. So the first piece of emotional permission I want to offer is this. You are allowed to be in the middle. You are allowed to not know. You are allowed to be becoming. And here's how we're going to go through this today. I'm going to first tell you the real moment that inspired this episode, and then why feeling lost feels so threatening, even when nothing has gone wrong externally. And finally, a simple practice to anchor yourself while this new version of you is forming. And of course, along the way, we'll weave in the science, which will be linked in the show notes. I want to take you backwards with me to the moment and the conversation that inspired this episode. And it wasn't dramatic, but it was profound. I was coaching a palliative care trainee, And this is the kind of doctor that does extra training in quality of life for medically complex patients and end-of-life management. And if you've worked with someone like this before, you know someone in palliative care, you know the depth of it. Many people think that palliative care might just be like giving up, but it's meeting both life and death with dignity and with meaning. It's such a beautiful profession, and those professionals are so emotionally intelligent. It's like wild. And of course, they have to be cognitively intelligent as well. But the level of discussions that I hold with those professionals are just extraordinary. And so this trainee, of course, he was brilliant. Of course, he was high performing. Of course, he was deeply compassionate. And yet he was struggling, not because he couldn't do the work, but because this moment of being in the in-between, it was really difficult on him. And it wasn't like he was lost as far as like he didn't know what to do tomorrow. Of course, he knew what to do. He knew the books to read. He knew the patients that he had to see. He knew like the next steps in his career development and how to get a job. Like that wasn't what was feeling lost to him. It was more like, I don't recognize myself at this moment. I used to feel so certain. I used to feel so solid. Like the past version of me, yeah, they didn't know what exactly this container was going to hold of extra training. But when I decided it, it was with a clear vision. It was with a clear purpose. And now that I'm in the midst of navigating this transition, it's moving, and I'm moving from this identity of student and trainee to being a faculty, a thought leader. I have tight finances. I'm in the process of looking for a job. And what happens if I don't get a job? What happens if I disappoint others? And on top of all of this, of course, the class is small and there's always a little bit of imposter syndrome, comparing himself to his peers and how brilliant they were and how sure they all seemed. And that only made him feel more othered. And so we kept exploring some of these themes, acknowledging that he was only really going to be disappointing himself if he didn't get the job, no matter what his friends or family thought. But working with a thought model, we knew what his experience would be. That a lot of his identity was tied up in being a physician or a healthcare provider. And please insert your own identity here, because this is not unique to being in a certain job. It's not unique to being a student or a trainee. Like this is a transition, a season of transition that we all go through, no matter what we do, no matter our roles or titles, we all go through evolution in the in-between stage. And so much of his goals and his outputs were all measured by what he defined as being a successful doctor, a good doctor. And again, please, put the labels where you need to apply them to you. But the more interesting question that I thought was, what happens if we remove all those labels? And so I'm going to invite you to do the same. Like, who are you at your core? And he said, I'm someone who wants to explore things. I like to discover things about myself and others. I'm curious. And the more we kept talking, he ended up saying, I want to create stories in a book. And I was like, oh, that's really interesting and not at all what I was expecting. Like more of different facets of him were coming out as we explored his identity and started removing, like what his friends wanted him and thought, what his family, what his job, what his patients, right? And so I thought, oh, this is a really interesting opening because he doesn't identify as a writer. So maybe he won't have all the hangups about the goals and outcomes of like what a writer would measure themselves up to be defined as a good writer or a successful writer, right? Because right now the hangups are so related to his identity and his role. And like that's where the gold was. That's where the freedom was. It was untouched. He didn't have any of those labels, any of those inherited rules and expectations that come with those labels. So therefore, there was no disappointments, no comparisons. So like, okay, perfect. Let's just play with this like free, untapped area. Let's pretend like you are already writing a book, the book of your freaking life, of your story, of your identity, even as it evolves and shifts, to see that this chapter that you're in the middle of, and we can see that like clearly this chapter is closing in just a few months, this chapter is going to be closed. And I'm already preparing to embark on the next chapter of the unknown. So like, yes, we are in this in-between chapters. And as we started to play with these chapters, like the finality of these chapters, it was clear that there was some grief, that the time was passing, the container was passing, the chapter was closing, and also, interestingly, grief for an unknown future. Like there was some grief as if the future was already failed, or because it was unknown, but not yet materialized, that it wasn't going to be, that there was a version of himself that he was, yes, grieving in the past that was closing, but also like a version of himself in the future that he was grieving, because maybe there's so many different versions of him, and because of his labels of what a good doctor is, a successful doctor is, there's only one version that can exist, and that kills all the other versions, you know? The version of himself that believed that like success means a good job, a good amount of money, and that's going to protect me from disappointment. The version of himself that believed that as long as I'm competent to my peers, maybe I can be protected from pain or rejection or shame from making a mistake. So we played with this idea of him writing his life story as these chapters in the book, but in a way where the chapters don't erase each other, or they're not like standalone chapters, you know, they inform each other. So I asked him, if your life is a book right now and we're writing this chapter, like, tell me about it. What does it feel like? What does it look like? And so he started saying how it, you know, feels messy, it feels uncertain, it feels uncomfortable. And having this background idea of like roles and identities and expectations, it just occurred to me to ask him, like, who are you writing this book for? Like, who's the reader? Because the same chapter is going to look totally different depending on the eyes of the reader, depending who's reading it. So if you're writing this chapter, even though it's messy and it's like complicated, it's uncertain, but it's your younger self who's reading it, that younger self who's like, can't wait for the future, has that, you know, those bright-eyed, bushy-tailed eyes, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, I think that's the phrase. That younger self who's bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and you see yourself as the hero, not because you're perfect, but oh my gosh, because you kept going, even though it was messy, even though it was uncertain. Like you became the kind of person who could hold hard things. Oh my gosh. Here I am as this young little reader, like, oh, he's so brave. I can't believe it. You didn't turn away from all the depth and the meaning. Okay, and now let's change readers again. Same chapter. We don't have to change the chapter at all. We don't have to change it, but we just playing with the perspective. So now what if the reader is your current self? The one that feels the sweat and the grind and the uncertainty, the nights where you don't sleep well, the moments where you're questioning, am I even cut out for this? The moments where you feel like you're failing because it's hard and you can't see the evidence. That's a different reader. You know, what if the reader is your parents? Maybe they see sacrifice. Maybe in that messy chapter, dang, they see devotion. You know, like this character don't know what's going to happen, but they're going to keep trying. That's my child. That they're devoted. You know, maybe they see tenderness. They see compassion. They believe in you. They see you for all of you, and they see you with tenderness. They see the child they raised doing something that matters. They feel pride. Maybe they feel a little bit of fear too. You know, we don't have to change what's in that chapter. We're just changing the reader and just noticing that our current self who's reading the same chapter is like judging and criticizing. Now, what if we change the reader to your older self? The reader who's looking back on that chapter, they know how the whole story ends. They see that chapter with nostalgia. That's the chapter that made you wise. Ooh, that's the chapter that made you human. That's the chapter that taught you what life is about. That chapter softened you in a way that success could never. That gives me chills. When I asked him all of those questions and take me through those readers, you could see him, like the room actually felt lighter. You could see his shoulders drop, like he visibly shifted. The issue was that he was never lost. The issue was that he was reading the current chapter from the wrong narrator. He was reading it from a narrator who demanded certainty, from the voice that demanded performance, measurement, that equated hard with wrong, ambiguity with failure. And all he had to do was shift into the older reader, the wise one, the meaning-making part of himself. And that chapter didn't look like failure. It looked like initiation. And then when he shifted into that younger reader with those big bright eyes, look like courage. And all of those versions are with you. And when we live our life as a collection of stories, it is a constant becoming. We can release the arrival and we can surrender and enjoy the plot twist and the whole story arc. And even just that practice of looking at yourself from different points of view, you not needing to change the chapter, just changing the point of view, like your younger self, like your older self. How much compassion does that open up to your current self? That you are brave, that you are exactly on track. This is a moment I want to underline for you. Feeling lost is often what it feels like when your identity is being rewritten in real time. Not broken, just rewritten. Okay, I'm going to pause here because if this is speaking to you, I want you to follow us on this journey of our becoming, our collective becoming of SoulSHINE. This isn't about me. This is about you. This is about us. This is about impacting the world. So hit subscribe so you don't miss the evolution and the becoming together. It helps the community grow. Okay, let's go back to the framework, because in psychology, there's a framework called narrative identity theory. And the citations will be linked in the show notes as usual. The simplest way to say this is that humans make meaning by organizing life events into a story about who we are. So it's not just what happened, but it's what it means. We know this from all of these episodes with the thought model, with we are sentient beings, we are meaning-making machines. Most of the time, our story feels stable. I'm the capable one. I'm the achiever. I'm the helper. I'm the strong one. I'm the one who holds it together. These identities are beautiful because they're functional and they're protective. Then there's nothing wrong with it. And when life introduces something that doesn't fit, maybe it's a transition, a loss, a season of burnout, a success that doesn't feel quite like you thought it was going to feel, a new desire that totally disrupts your plan, maybe a truth you can no longer unsee. When the old story doesn't explain your current experience, of course you feel disoriented. That disorientation is narrative disruption. And our knee-jerk reaction is just to interpret it as I'm lost. But it's more accurate to say, my old identity story is no longer sufficient. No problem. There's another concept that matters here too, which is self-continuity. Self-continuity is your felt sense that you are the same you across time, past, present, and future. And when your self-continuity is strong, change is tolerable. When it's disrupted, you do feel fragmented. Like, who am I now? What does this mean now? Am I still me? And that's why transitions can feel like existential, even when nothing is quote unquote wrong externally. Shoot, it might even be a good thing, like a new addition, a new job, and something like that the world would celebrate as good. What's shifting is not your schedule, but your self-story. And here's what I want you to hear. You can continue to build self-continuity without going back, without erasing parts of yourself, without fixing anything. You build coherence without resurrecting this old self and forcing it to fit. You just integrate it. And integration doesn't just live in the head. It's not just cognitive. It's also somatic. It's embodied. It's the way that your body has learned who you are through repetition, through your roles, through your responsibility, through survival, through being praised for being good, capable, strong. So when your identity is loosening, your nervous system, of course, it's going to react. That might look like you feel tight in your chest. You feel a lump in your throat. You're tired. You're restless. You have urge to just solve it. Get rid of it. You're irritated. You're numbed. You're overworking. You're overthinking. All of this is not because something has gone wrong. It's just because we're unconsciously believing that uncertainty feels unsafe to a system that has learned safety through control. So if you're in this transition season feeling lost and you feel like your body is like buzzing or collapsing or bracing, don't take that as proof that like, turn back, rush back into this old self that doesn't fit because it's certain. That's the temptation. You know what's back there. It's just a cue that we can create safety while our identity reorganizes. So maybe this is you. You're a woman who comes into coaching and says, like, I don't know what's wrong with me. I've done everything right. I've got the career. I've got the credentials. I've got the stability, but yet I feel flat inside. I'm not falling apart. I'm showing up. I'm functioning, but there's just a fullness that's lacking. And then I have shame about it. Like, what kind of person feels unfulfilled when their life is this good? Like, I've got it all on paper. I feel ashamed for not feeling more grateful about it. And that was me too. I say this from personal experience. Many soulful achievers build their identity around proof. I'm safe when I'm competent. I'm loved when I'm useful. I belong when I'm impressive. I'm worthy when I'm productive. Not a moral failing. It's an adaptation. It's how we're taught to function and survive, right? But eventually, the heart, the soul, the spirit, it asks a different question. What if I want to be valued for who I am, not only what I produce? And when that question wakes you up, you can feel lost because that old identity system doesn't know how to answer it. And so we try to solve it by doing more, producing more. But the answer is so rarely performing, and so much more frequently it's about being honest, about being present, about being loyal to yourself. So here's the tension that maybe you're feeling. If this resonates with you, that there's one part of you that knows that there's more aliveness, more desire, more truth, more freedom. And this other part of you that has learned to survive without it because it's learned to be practical. It's learned to be liked. It has learned to even be needed. And it's learned to be fine. I'm just fine. So you live inside the split. A part of you that longs and a part of you that manages. And that feeling of lost is sometimes when those two parts start negotiating, they start talking because you're waking up, which is beautiful. So here's the reframe I want to offer you. Feeling lost, that might be the most honest thing your system can do. Just let it happen because it's the moment we stop lying to ourselves. And the moment where we no longer believe certainty, the moment where you stop sprinting just so you don't have to feel. It's the moment that you admit, you know what, this chapter is changing me. And instead of interpreting it as danger, we can interpret it as meaning is deepening. Meaning forms before a plan. How are you going to plan something if you don't know where you're going or what you want to get out of the journey? You have to have meaning first. So if you're in a chapter that feels messy, raw, uncertain, I want you to ask yourself, who is reading this chapter? Is it the part of you that demands perfection? Or is it the part of you that knows becoming is not linear? Is it the part of you that equates discomfort with failure? Or is it the part of you that recognizes discomfort as growth? Your chapter hasn't changed and you don't have to rush to change it and exhaust yourself to change it. We just have to change the narrator. In acceptance and commitment therapy, there's a concept called self as context. And the citations will be in the show notes. It's the part of you that you can observe your experience without being consumed by it. Instead of, I'm lost, you can say, I'm having the experience of feeling lost. That's a really small linguistic shift, but notice that it created space. It's not that I'm lost and I'm inseparable. It's not that I'm lost and I'm inseparable from lost. It's that I'm me. I'm having an experience outside of me, separate from the core of me. And that experience is one of many, and it's feeling lost. That builds something called psychological flexibility. That's the ability to stay present with discomfort while acting in alignment with values. And that's what integration requires, is just staying present long enough for your new self to form, not by force, by relationship. A solid, loving, accepting relationship to yourself. So If you're in a lost season, do this with me right now. Step 1, name where you are without judgment. I'm in the chapter of reinvention. I'm in the chapter of not knowing. Whatever chapter you are, let's name it. Okay, that creates separation. It's not that I'm lost. I'm in the chapter of feeling lost. Step 2, feel one point of contact with something solid. Maybe right now your feet are on the floor, your back is against the chair, whatever it is. You are right here, separate from the chapter. Step 3, name one value that you want to live today. Just one. Don't overwhelm the list, just one. You can change it tomorrow. You can change it in 5 minutes. Integrity, kindness, courage, presence. Why? Because values are identity anchors. When the story is in flux and changing, the values rebuild the continuity because you start recognizing yourself not by certainty, but by what you chose. So let's return back to that palliative care story I was giving you at the beginning. If your life is a book, what chapter would you be in? So remember step 1, let's name it without judgment. Let's say it's the chapter of reinvention, the chapter of not knowing, the chapter of letting go, the chapter of being honest, the chapter of learning to rest, the chapter of choosing myself. So let's say for him, it was the chapter of reinvention. Okay. Now we're going to ask, who is reading this chapter? Is it your younger self? The one who would look at you and see you as a hero? Is it your current self? The one who feels the sweat, the grind, the fear? Is it your loved ones? The ones who might see the sacrifice and devotion? Is it your older self? The one who sees this as a chapter that made you wise? And then just play with it. What changes if I let my older self narrate the season? Not with toxic positivity and bypassing, but with meaning, with truth, with reverence. That's how we start to integrate. My older self would see this chapter, the chapter of reinvention, and they would see it with tenderness, with fondness. They would know that that reinvention leads to something beautiful and miraculous and a deeper relationship with self. They would know that it requires courage. They would know that that chapter is hard and messy and there's difficult conversations and there's a lot of faith required and there's not the evidence yet. Like my older self knows the evidence is going to come a few more chapters down the road, but they're looking at this chapter with like this quiet smile on their face because they know the future chapters are coming. And they're looking at this current version as really freaking brave with a lot of faith and courage. That's integration. So this week, I want you to notice whenever you think I'm uncertain, I'm lost, just stop. Name the chapter. Separate it from your story of self. See it with different eyes. Maybe it is the inner wise one who read the whole book. Talk to them. What do they say about your chapter? Can you borrow their perspective as a reader? You don't have to know how it all turned out. Can you see how there's one value that's weaving this chapter into the next chapter? Can they help you today move from one act of self-loyalty, one moment of honesty, one moment of releasing expectations? Can they help you with one boundary, one moment where you stop performing like everything's fine? Integration is built through those small moments of self-trust. You got this, and we've got you. So thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for trusting this space. Thank you for letting yourself be in the messy middle, not as a mistake, but as a passage, as the unfolding of the next chapter. For our ending tradition, here are some more questions for you to contemplate. How would I live this if I told it as the greatest story of my becoming? How would I live this as if my past younger self is looking up to me like a hero? Where am I reading this chapter from fear instead of meaning? And what would it look like to treat this lost season as sacred? What chapter are you in? And who's been narrating it? If you know someone who needs permission to be in the unknown, share this with them right now. And if you want the perfect companion to this episode, go back to episode 35 on choosing higher quality problems. It'll be linked in the show notes, and it'll support how to make the problems of this messy middle the highest quality problems for your highest quality growth. I am wishing you so much play and possibility and peace, even in the uncertain. I'm wishing you to feel so supported in this space. And I am so honored to be a part of your soul tribe. I'm sending you love, and I'll see you next week. Bye.